Andrew Tate is effectively the guy who's going to that young man who knows he's deficient and telling him, get to work now.
Is Tucker Carlson a leader?
There's like this view that being a follower is a bad thing. I completely disagree. From the get-go, I was saying Trump lost this one.
Your take on defunding the police then?
I'm in favor of it and against it at the same time. It's actually really simple.
Welcome back to another episode of The Me Kevin Show. In this episode, we have the opportunity to sit down with Tim Pool. We were just on his podcast. Make sure to check that out on Culture Wars. But on Culture Wars, I have a question for you. We're going to start with that we actually didn't talk about on yours, Andrew Tate. Oh, yeah. Is Andrew Tate good for America or not?
I don't listen to a lot of his stuff. I've actually known him for I've never met him in person, but I've known him online for a very, very long time. I can't speak to these videos that come out where he says he did awful things or whatever. What I can say is the stuff that I do see from him tends to be good, but that could just be like selection bias.
Do you think he's providing purpose for younger men, or is there potentially a dangerous purpose if there's this, male masculinity, toxic masculinity is what the media likes to brand him as?
That's tough. Jordan Peterson, I would say, probably does a better job with purpose and masculinity. But that's kind of silly to say because Jordan Peterson's a button-up college, professor literally type. And Andrew Tate is a world champion kickboxer, famous Bugatti driving, all of these things. I would say the messages that I've seen from Tate are a general net positive, telling young men to work hard, don't stop, believe in yourself. All that stuff's really good. There was one viral video I saw where he says, a rocket ship going to the moon doesn't stop halfway to take a break. It has to keep pushing nonstop. And I'm like, that's a good message. But I know there's a lot of stuff that he's been accused of saying. And I think it's just fair for me to say, I don't know if I know enough about his full body of work for me to give a good answer. What I can say is the general concept of teaching young men to be responsible, hardworking, and to embrace their masculinity is a good thing. And the reason why so many young men are turning to him is because he's providing them with that vision and that leadership that they're lacking elsewhere.
Is it our schools that are failing? Is it parents that are failing? Is it government that's failing? Why are they being failed?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. Yeah, our schools are a disaster. I've always hated the public school system. My experience with it was horrible. Parents absolutely are failing. The government, the Department of Education is an easy example, but come on, we can give a million examples of government failure. Schools punish masculinity. This has been something since I was a kid. The young boy who is fidgeting and wants to play is scolded and told to sit still and shut up. A more feminine trait. Young girls are they have a tendency towards calmly sitting and being more agreeable. Young boys are fidgety. They want to play sports. They want to be physically active. So I think, especially with that mentality, you then graduate to the MeToo movement era stuff and the culture wars, where that's one example of the failings that we see in schools and in the system. There's this meme poster where it says, John was drunk, Jane was drunk, they had sex. Jane could not consent, so John raped her. And it's like, well, they're both drunk, right? That's just one example of men are feeling beaten down, insulted, and left behind. And our universities do it. The reason I'd say parents are failing is because I've never liked the idea of, I don't have kids, so look, my opinion is ill-informed, but I would just say handing off your children to an institutionalized learning facility to raise them, what's actually happening is your children are being raised by other children. The amount of time a child spends with a mentor figure in a school is minimal, and the amount of time they learn from other children is very high. So the behavior is, I saw this when I was growing up. Why is it that where I'm at in terms of social development is more responsible, staying away from drugs, and then this other girl in my neighborhood, drugs, gangs, all that really bad stuff, and it was because she learned from other kids. Right. And so, I spent time with my family at the family business where I was surrounded by adults. And so the conversations I heard, the lessons I would be given, and the hard work I was doing at my family business lended itself to how I viewed the world and how I behaved. And the kids that were around me, my social development will be like, I'm standing at a counter making a cup of coffee when a guy walks up and says, I am sick of these Republicans and they're religious, blah, blah, blah. And I'm hearing that conversation. The kid in my class would spend all their time with another kid going, did you see the new Eminem video? They're learning from kids who also don't know. Whereas I was being influenced by adults who had, different opinions and everything.
And their problems or whatever. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. I think when it comes to parents, kids need to be working with the parents. They need to be speaking more with adults. There's this viral video showing a bunch of kids in the 50s and the children, 7 or 8 years old, are speaking like 40-year-olds about war. And there's this little kid being like, I'm quite concerned with what's happening with Germany. The invasion of Poland was quite startling to so many of us. And I don't know exactly what he said, but everyone's like, what is this? It's because these children were being taught by adults to act like adults. And so they did. And the reason why we see children today acting like children is because the schools are just having kids learn from other children.
Wow. So a lack of leadership in the schools. Is there a potential that if Andrew Tate is potentially the answer maybe or the counter to the MeToo movement, at what point does that become potential lack of respect towards women? How do you balance that?
Right. Yeah. So I don't want to say that Andrew Tate is the answer to the MeToo movement, nor that the MeToo movement was entirely inherently bad. Women being abused or harassed in work is horrible. And the idea that they would speak up and call out awful people like, Harvey Weinstein or whatever. And a lot of these disgusting guys should be criminally charged for the criminal acts they did. But what I mean when I bring up the MeToo movement is that there were many stories of false accusations. There was the story of the mattress girl in New York where she carried around the mattress, got the cover of magazines and was featured and celebrated. And then it turned out that the guy she accused, she actually was lying about it. She said that's what was reported. It was reported. Text messages came out showing that she was begging him and desperately in love with him, and he rejected her. And then after they hooked up, she begged him to stay with her. He said, I'm not interested. Thank you, though. And then she immediately said, then it was rape. And then turned it into this big PR campaign. That results in a bunch of men being like, I understand wanting to go after rapists, but why are you lying about me and destroying my life? And the institutions were immediately just siding with the accusers, which led to this major, anti-feminist backlash. I don't think that Andrew Tate falls into that sphere necessarily. I think Andrew Tate falls into the sphere of young men are purposeless. They're not finding relationships. They're struggling to meet women. They are physically weak, mentally weak, and they don't want to be. They know their deficiencies. They want to be better. They want to be strong. They want to be Superman. Andrew Tate says, he's like, look, why do people have physical trainers? You could go to the gym and exercise on your own, but you don't exactly know how to do what you need to do or how to get the motivation. So people will hire a physical trainer to tell you, no, keep going. One more, do it. And then you're pushing. It's like, come on. And then you get that last push-up. Someone to give you the drive and motivation to make you feel like this is the right path forward, the leadership you need. That's what Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson both do. Andrew Tate in a different way from Peterson.
Sure.
But Andrew Tate is effectively the guy who's going to that young man who knows he's deficient and telling him, get to work now. And then the kid's like, I got to do it. And they can feel that people need leadership. Some people are leaders. Some people need leaders. And there's nothing wrong with being someone, there's like this view that being a follower is a bad thing. I completely disagree. Why do we like dogs so much? Dogs are loyal.
Yeah.
And there's the famous story of Hachiko the dog. Do you know the story of Hachiko? Keep it simple. Japanese professor adopts an Akita puppy. One day when he's walking to the train station to go teach at university, the Hachiko breaks out and follows him. That started a tradition of every day Hachiko would walk with him to the train station. And then when he was coming home, Hachiko would run back and meet him at the train. One day, the professor had a stroke while at his university and he died. Hachiko came to the train station and waited. And the simple version is he waited for 10 years because he would not abandon his friend. And they say, dogs need to smell the death so that they can grieve. They tried to remove Hachiko and rehome him. He would always break out and he would always go back to that train station. They built a statue in Hachiko's honor. That's why we love dogs so much, because we know that they are there for us, but they're followers. So I think about some people are leaders. Andrew Tate's clearly a leader. And some people are followers. I think about a great general that we revere. And we always need to remember that those soldiers who stood on the front line with that man were followers, but they had some of the greatest courage to stand and face death for something greater than themselves. So there's nothing wrong with being a follower, but you'll need a leader. You'll need someone to be that motivating force. If you do not give young men a strong motivating force, or you demonize them, they will find it wherever they can. And like I said, I think Andrew Tate is, based on what I've seen of him today, I can't speak for any of the other stuff he said. There's a lot of things that are controversial. I don't know about some things that I said that are despicable. But the message I see for him today tends to be empowering for young men who are in desperate need of that. Perhaps if they have complaints about Andrew Tate and don't like it, they should stop demonizing masculinity and provide real masculine. I mean, look, even Jordan Peterson, who's a fairly mild-mannered guy, they called him a Nazi and far right and all that stuff. Well, if you can't have Jordan Peterson, you get Andrew Tate. So that's what you got to deal with.
Wow. Great answer. Tucker Carlson recently interviewed Donald Trump. Some say that Tucker Carlson was weak in his questioning in his interview. Is Tucker Carlson a leader?
Yes. Tucker Carlson, but he's absolutely a leader, and there's no question about that. But he's not on the same level as a Trump or an Andrew Tate or even a Jordan Peterson. And what I mean by that is, there's probably a bunch of other names I could list. Tucker is he's an individual operator. He does his thing. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy who wants to be in charge of everyone else. He's just forward-thinking, intelligent, well-read, understands a lot, and he's conveying those ideas. I'd probably put myself in a similar position to Tucker on the scale of leadership. I'm not here to be leading a charge in terms of like, like obviously to a certain degree, I push more than Tucker probably does, but I'm not running for office. I don't want to be anyone's boss, even though I am. I'm not doing this so that I can be in charge of a bunch of people, but there is a degree of leadership that we're both engaged in without being the let me run this and let me fix this. Jordan Peterson is a culture warrior leader, a general in the culture war. He goes online and he says, here's what I think, here's what's happening. Tucker and Tucker obviously to a 100-fold more than I do, say, here's the news we saw and here's what we think about it. So, whereas Jordan Peterson sets the standard of this is the issue and this is the history, and that leads a lot of people in a certain direction. And Trump says, I want to be your leader, vote for me. Someone like Tucker Carlson is more so like, well, let me talk to you about what's going on, but I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to take charge of your life,
Can somebody like Vivek be a leader if some say he's just echoing or parroting what Trump says in potentially even a further way?
Oh, Vivek is absolutely a leader. He's new to the scene. Many of his positions are untested. He's not been in office, but he is standing in front. And the best example of leadership in this regard is there's the obvious semantic argument of, yes, he wants to be president. So he's trying to be a leader. On the debate stage, when asked, would you still support Donald Trump if he was convicted? Without hesitation, Vivek's hand goes as high as it can possibly go. Then Nikki Haley, and then some men to the right. And then finally, Ron DeSantis looks to his right, looks to his left, and then half holds up his hand.
Right.
That image right there shows
A lack of leadership.
Versus leadership.
Yeah.
Vivek was uninterested in whether or not people would like or hate him for his view on supporting Trump. He knew. You can say that Vivek is just trying to appease Trump voters. Fine. You can say he's just trying to pony up to Trump. Absolutely. But that means that in his mind, he is definitive and he knows this is the move that must be made to win. And he's not going to wait for an audience to clap. Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, was unsure. So Ron may be saying he wants to be a leader, but looking around to see what the temperature is before raising your hand is... Now, I guess Ron's response was that they had agreed not to do the hand raising thing. And
interesting.
So when it happened, he was like, are they actually doing this? Doesn't matter. It shows that he was caught off guard. And I'm not trying to drag him for it. Maybe he was caught off guard, but Vivek knew definitively the move that had to be made, whether you like him or not. Right. And so a leader is the one who's going to decide, I'm going to jump out head first to lead.
Do we have a leader in the United States today?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, there's tons of leaders.
Political.
Trump's a leader. He's obviously, he was the president. He wants to be the president, and he has a loyal base that believes, in what he's doing, and they'll follow him for it. Joe Biden's not a leader. He's in the semantic sense, we can make the definitional argument. Well, he's the president, so of course but come on, he's all over the place. Mitch McConnell's not a leader, despite the fact that he's literally Leader McCarthy. It's ridiculous, and maybe he once was. He was, but he's not there anymore. And so there's a lot of leaders.
Gavin Newsom?
Gavin Newsom's a leader. But, there's gradients.
So this is not the political based in terms of your opinion as to whether they're a leader or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, Gavin Newsom is a governor, so you have the definitional, but he's also taking charge, trying to win. He wants to debate DeSantis. He clearly wants to be president. These are leadership qualities. I don't like the guy.
Sure.
To be honest, Trump barely crosses the line for me in a lot of ways as well. But I find Trump. You know what I love about Trump's dishonesty is like superficial, and I mostly don't care. And his honesty is groundbreaking. His honesty is key moment in his presidential term. He goes up to a reporter and they're like, what's going on with, we heard there's a weapons trade deal with Saudi Arabia. Oh, it's fantastic. We're selling all these weapons to Saudi Arabia. We're going to make a ton of money. It's going to boost our economy. And then you get all of these anti-war leftists, their jaws hit the floor like, he just admitted it. He just admitted this is what the United States does. We sell weapons to our allies, and then they oppress other people, and we do it for profit.
Yeah.
Or when Trump said, we're going to keep soldiers to protect the oil, like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom is the more smarmy kind of guy who tells you what you want to hear and is actually just running things into the ground. But no one ever said a leader had to be a good leader, right?
That's a good point.
There's good leaders, there's bad leaders.
Plenty of bad leaders.
Hey, big shout out to Tim Pool and Tim Pool's audience. In case you don't know me, quick interjection, I'm a licensed financial advisor and I have a goal of making everybody more money. I have courses that teach you everything that you need to know on going from zero to millionaire in real estate, in stocks, investing, or even with your job and income. Those are over at meetkevin.com. And if you want actual financial advice, dedicated to your personal situation, personalized financial advice, you can now get stacked with StackHack. Go to stackhack.com for that. And if you want to learn more about my real estate startup, how we're bringing more homes to communities so that people can live in them and finally afford to live in a quality property, check out househack.com to learn more about my real estate startup. We hope to be the vanguard of real estate, making real estate affordable for everyone. So check these out. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the interview.
What do you think about individuals' responsibility in wealth creation?
100%. For whatever reason, I don't like the idea of someone being born into money and then acting as though they're worthy of it. But I'm not going to insult or deride or discriminate because somebody inherited wealth. I have a lot of friends who are born into wealthy families who are totally detached from the plight of the working class. And I have people who were born working class who have lost touch. And I think it's fair to say probably I and many others who have found success lose touch into a certain degree. And it normalizes for you, and you don't realize it. But when it comes to generating wealth, it's you. Let's use a poker analogy. I love poker. Worst possible hand you can get when the game starts is 7 deuce offsuit, 7-2 of 2 different suits, 2 different symbols. The best is 2 aces. The chance of winning with 7 deuce against aces is like 11 or 9%. It's like ridiculously bad. I think it might be like 12.
You got to get it straight. And good luck. Yeah.
So the reason 7-2 is so bad is that you can't make a straight between the 2 cards.
You can't. You're right. You're 1 card off.
Exactly.
See, I'm not the best poker player, clearly.
Right. So a pair of 2s loses to everything. A pair of 7s is going to lose to half the board. With 2 different suits, you can't make a flush. The gap between 7 and 2 is so great, you can't make a straight. The only thing you can get is like if 2 7s hit the board or 2 2s, so you get 3 of a kind. It's really, really difficult. But here's the thing. Doesn't matter. You can have aces, and you can have the best hand, I can have the worst hand. And then the first 3 cards come out, Texas Hold'em style. And it's 4, 5, 6. And then the person holding the pair of aces says, wait a minute, someone could have a straight with 4, 5, 6. And actually, I have 7.
Yeah, 3, 7 maybe. Yeah.
Well, I've got 2 7s.
Right,
so that means
but they don't know that.
And so what I do is the person with the aces, they make a bet. I raise. I make a bigger bet.
Yeah.
And now they're like, uh-oh.
He's got the straight.
He hit it, didn't he?
Yeah.
He flopped it. And they go, I don't want to do this, but I think you hit it. And they flip over the aces and fold them. And then you flip over the bluff. I had nothing. You gave up. Why? Even though I was dealt the worst possible hand and you were dealt the best, I played it right.
Wow.
And I win the money. So that's the life lesson right there. And the simple one is we're all dealt different cards. It's how you play them that determines it. That'd be fair. If you played a game of poker and every hand you got was 7-2, you'd be miserable and you'd be losing.
Yeah.
And if every hand you got was aces, you'd be winning endlessly, and then people would stop playing with you.
Sure.
So, but for the most part, there was a study done on poker. They found that I think it's 75 to 80% of winning hands were not the best hand.
Wow, 75%
to 80. Yeah.
So that means you're more likely to succeed with a deficit at the start.
It's you can view it that way from the surface, but it's more so poker is a game of people, not a game of cards. Yeah, I got a buddy who loves playing poker. He knows all the math. And then I played a ridiculous hand, 3-5 suited, really low, hard to win. And then I won. I won a couple $100. And he was like, "What were you doing?" And I was like, "It doesn't matter what I have. It matters how they're acting. Is the person making the bet against me scared?" I'll give you an example. The other day, I had 3-4 suited, 3-4 of spades. And the board came out something like 7-9-10 with 2 hearts. If there's 3 hearts, a 3 of 1 suit on the board, someone could have a flush, pretty strong. So the other guy looks at the board, he makes a bet, I call. The next card comes out as a heart. He immediately pulls his head back and then goes back down, and I'm like, he doesn't got it. So then he checks, meaning I'm not going to make a bet, and then I say all in, and I push $300 in the middle, and he goes, shakes his head, and then he throws his cards in the middle, and I flip over the bluff. He showed me he was weak. And so I knew I couldn't beat his cards. I had garbage, but I also knew he was scared, and I ended up winning, a decent amount of money. I think it was like $150.
Good for you.
But there you go. There you go. Poker analogy complete. That's the general idea. If you are going to succeed in this world, I think it was there's a TED talk about this. They tracked all of these different stories of success, businesses that were working. They found there is one aspect that people had that was correlated with success, and it was not wealth, appearance, it was perseverance.
Wow.
There were people born into wealthy families who lost it all. They gave up. There were people born into poverty who never made a dime. And there were people who were born into poverty who became millionaires because they never gave up.
Wow. And
they said that was it. And that's what we were talking about this a bit before. Failure is an important component of life. If you fail and then stop, that's it. It's over. But if you fail and keep going, you will succeed.
Amazing. Wow.
Let's clarify this point too.
Yeah.
Success doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire.
Right.
Success could mean that you got a good paying job and you're moving forward. Success could mean that on the treadmill of life, you've advanced 1 foot versus falling back behind and getting dragged away.
It sounds like it's very important then for us as individuals to study people and people skills. Why aren't we teaching more of that in schools?
Yeah. I guess the idea is that kids learn to socialize with each other in schools. It's one of the arguments they make against homeschooling. But while you will learn some basics of human interaction, without proper guidance, a parent or parents to explain morals to you, it can go one of two different directions. I mean, there's no guarantee that the lesson you're trying to teach sticks the way you're trying to teach it.
Are you a proponent of homeschooling?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Will you homeschool? Do you have children?
I do not, but absolutely they will be homeschooled.
Wow.
But this also means that we will meet with local parents and the kids will play with each other and learn to socialize. They'll learn from us, not from, they'll learn some things from each other because some things, humans have to learn to develop on their own, but they'll learn behaviors and manners from the adults around them, which we will try to have an outsized influence on, of course. But, when that time comes, I suppose.
That's amazing. Couple more questions. When on social media today, one of the reasons it seems like we have these stronger echo chambers is that I once invited, actually potentially twice, I can't remember now, but I invited Lauren Southern on and we had a great discussion and a lot of the commentary I got was, how could you platform this person? What's your response to this idea of platforming someone when really you're looking for their perspective and having a discussion with?
I think that shows the weakness of what we refer to as the tribal left. They can't defend their ideas against their political opponents, so they hide from them. It's just that. Their argument they make is that by platforming Lauren Southern, you give space to her ideas. That means literally nothing to me, because if I bring someone on who has bad ideas, I will destroy those ideas in real time. If my ideas are weak and would lose to my political enemies, well, you can't platform them then. Think about it this way. They say, if you platform Lauren Southern, people are going to hear what she says and then agree with her. And it's like, so you're saying she'll be persuasive and convince them of her position and I won't be able to counter it? There's no concern if I platform someone I disagree with. We had one guy on the show that had an absurd position on abortion. This is I'll leave his name out of it just so I don't drag him. But he said if a woman wants to get an abortion at any point, she should be allowed to.
Oh wow! Okay.
At any point for any reason, it's her choice. And then I said, okay, well, what about meth? And he's like, what? I was like, can a pregnant woman do meth? And he was like, well, no, because that intentionally kills the baby. And you see, I'm like,
oops.
Right. I'm not worried about this guy coming in here because, like, I've had friends ask me, hey, I'm going to debate this person. Do you think this argument is good? And I'm like, why do you need my opinion on your opinion? Do you believe what you're saying? And can you back up what you're saying? And if someone tells you something that contradicts your view and proves you wrong, would you reject it? So I'm like, there's no debate. If I invite one of these guys on my show, no one cares that I platform him because he's allowed to be right. And so if someone comes in and says, women should be allowed to do this, that, or otherwise, I say, okay, that's your opinion you're allowed to have. Let me ask you a follow-up question then based on that your logical view on this. How do you feel about this? You give me a sound answer. I'll say, that's fine. You're allowed to have an opinion. You give me an illogical answer and I still don't care.
Sure.
So when he said women can't do meth, it intentionally kills the baby. I said, well, hold on there a minute. I didn't say, haha, I got you. I said, I don't understand what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that women can choose to terminate the pregnancy whenever they want. But if they take a drug that would terminate the pregnancy, right? He's allowed to be right. And if he's wrong, then he's wrong. And if someone comes on, we've had like Michael Malice, for instance, is a real good friend of ours. And he made an argument about defunding the police. And I said, oh yeah, it's a good point. I have no argument for that. He's allowed to introduce information I didn't consider. And if the logic fits, I will say, okay. So, the platforming idea is an argument from people who want to win political power without actually having to be right.
Your take on defunding the police then?
Oh yeah, I'm in favor of it and against it at the same time.
Oh,
it's actually really simple. If a city like San Francisco wants to defund the police, I don't care. I don't live there. And if you're seeing rampant crime and the raiding of these stores and they're locking things up, shutting down CVS, shutting down Walgreens, and it is extremely disruptive, you've got drug problems, and you think police should be defunded, who am I to force my worldviews and political views onto your city? I don't live there. I don't vote there. However, personally, I would never do that where I live.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to defund the police. I think police need more funding. What police need more funding for training, more funding for different departments that handle different tasks. You get the left response of we should have social workers. And my response is I like community outreach police that deal with certain crimes. I don't think we need to send a body armor wearing cop with a rifle to do traffic control. And I asked the question, why is a cop doing traffic control armed? And like his gun could be in his car. The question, I got response from conservatives saying, yeah, but what if like a criminal shoots at him or whatever? And I'm like, dude, we've got other problems if people are just shooting at random people in the streets. And I think you have SWAT, you have beat cops, you have traffic cops, you could have community outreach police. That's more funding, more training, and a diversification of the department. I do think ultimately, though, the issue isn't the police themselves. It is cultural. It's the density of urban populations. You live in a small town. You've got 10 cops. They know you.
Yeah.
You get pulled over. The cop walks up and he goes, Kevin, come on, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm giving you a warning right now, but we're going to like, if I, I'm going to tell your wife when I see her that you were speeding again. What do you think she's going to say? You're going to be like, oh, John, please. I will never do it again. There's like small town social components where we know each other and cop might not like you. He might be a neighborhood rival and he's going to be like, Kevin, you son of a, what are you speeding for? I'm writing you a ticket. Don't put this on. You live in a big city. What happens? You're not speeding. Cop's got a quota. He pulls you over, walks over and says, you were speeding. You go, no, I wasn't. He goes, I don't care. And he throws you a ticket. Doesn't know you, doesn't care about you, not part of his life. And there's no social ramifications to being a bad person. This results in cops saying, I'm not going to deal with this because it's not, there's no social ramifications.
Do you think that's because then a lack of funding for training or because of that social disconnect, which is more important?
It's social disconnect.
Okay.
Outright. You get a cop that thinks to himself, let me give you an example. Attila's Gym in New Jersey. They tried to remain open. They did remain open during the COVID lockdowns. This is in South Jersey. This was only a few miles away from where I lived at the time. Local police came out and said, we were instructed to shut you down. However, we won't be doing it. Everyone claps and cheers, and the cops say, we'll be on our way. So the city calls in a neighboring city's department.
Ugh.
And these cops, with smiles on their faces, say, nothing we do here will have any effect on my life other than getting paid, baby. So they lock the doors, pull people out, fine them, detain them, and ain't nothing you can do about it because we don't live here. I don't care.
They have police power. Interesting.
Yep.
Unchecked police power by a lack of social awareness or however. I mean, supposedly
Social ramifications.
Maybe body cameras are helping then? Or?
To a certain degree, but then you just get these absurd scenarios like Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, where the left turns them into their cause to celebrate when the context of those stories is actually substantially more confusing and chaotic than anyone realizes.
Of course.
It just gets turned into a political nightmare. But don't get me wrong, I think body cameras are a good thing. But video footage is always just weaponized by media sources for clicks, and they'll show selective footage. They'll lie about it. Like, the Ahmaud Arbery story is one of the greatest hoaxes that they've perpetrated on this country. And it's a nightmare scenario that is allowed. But what do? Media narratives dominate. And if people believe wrong things, then bad things happen.
2 last quick ones. Guns. More guns or less guns?
More guns.
Okay. Optimism or pessimism going forward?
Optimism.
Really?
Bud Light, Target, Sound of Freedom, Richmond, north of Richmond.
Those don't sound like optimistic situations right now. They all sound pessimistic.
Why are they pessimistic?
Well, Richmond is talking about the corruption and political...
Billboard Hot 100. Number one.
No. I mean, that is great. That is great because it's
why it's
echoing the sentiment of political corruption, the frustration of that, or Target, the negativism of not just more theft, but also,
Oh, no, but let's break it down.
Go for it.
Bud Light took an action that upset the public, and the
Right.
public responded in a way that punished them as a business they will have to adapt to.
Is that good or bad?
It's good.
Okay.
The will of the people matters.
Okay.
And these corporations can't just destroy, pollute, lie, cheat, and steal without
I see
facing...
what you're saying. You're optimistic that the people will win in the end versus... Okay. Yes,
I'm
yes,
optimistic
yes,
that...
Yes.
that the people are pushing back
It's
against...
bad for those companies. Pessimistic for them, but optimistic for society. I get it.
The elites who don't like you
Yeah.
and want to exploit you and
Yes.
run the show are losing grip. They're losing their control. And what we're seeing now is people waking up and realizing that all that is required of evil to triumph is that good people do nothing. And so now good people are saying, at the very least, I won't buy the products of these companies if I don't like them.
That's fantastic.
So with Richmond, north of Richmond, it's people saying, I love this message, and the industry being smacked in the face by it. They're going to have to recognize this is coming. The cultural shift is happening, and we don't take kindly to corrupt elites anymore. And Richmond, north of Richmond is not a left or right-wing message in the pure sense, but it's an anti-establishment, anti-elite message.
It's a very American,
Yeah.
down-to-earth message.
Sound of Freedom, the grassroots success of that film, that people are willing to stand up for what they believe in. That shows that the era of apathy, lethargy, and ignorance is fading. That, I think, is really, really good.
And that makes you optimistic.
Yeah. Because it's going to, a lot of people kept saying, leave me out of it. I don't want to talk politics. I want to watch sports. And there's pros and cons that come with it.
Apathy, then they don't vote.
Right. And the pros of the apathy is that there may be less fighting. People may not fight in the streets. So that's a bad thing that could happen when people get more active. But ultimately, if the people adhere to their civic responsibilities, then I think the country dramatically improves. People start to understand each other better. And then we fix the problems and corruption in government.
Should people always vote, or are there times where it makes sense not to?
You should always vote. I think, I really hated Trump's fraud narrative and his fraud message. He was basically telling people not to vote, and it was the stupidest thing imaginable. And, I from the get-go, I was saying Trump lost this one. And it's really funny because the narrative that these political organizations have to do to counter me is to lie and claim that I supported Trump's narrative, which I did not. The Republicans lost the Senate with, I think it was with Warnock, because Trump went
Georgia.
out. Yeah. And he told everybody, you can't win. And I'm sick of hearing people say, what's the point of voting? They're cheating. And I'm like, dude, that's the cheating. The cheating is to convince you not to vote. You need to vote in such overwhelming numbers that no amount of cheating could ever affect you in any way. So the path forward, the path to victory right now is voting for who you believe in, writing them in if you have to. But sitting back and being defeatist, I'm like, look, maybe you lose the election, but the only way you actually lose is if enough of you are convinced not to vote. If every single person in this country who believed what you believe voted, you'd win a landslide.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tim Pool, thank you so much. How can people follow you?
I'm on X at Timcast, and they can go to youtube.com/TimcastIRL, 8 p.m. Monday through Friday live. We talk news and politics.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Which I say, yes, meet Kevin.
Where does this mean we are in the economic cycle? Should we be thinking about buying real estate? Should we be thinking about buying stocks? I have a background in real estate as a real estate agent, real estate broker, real estate investor, a stock market investor, and fund manager.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here?
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Always great to have you on. Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber, Meet Kevin.